Could the Chicago Bears take Marvin Harrison Jr. #1 overall? What's up, guys? Swift here, covering everything Chicago Bears, and today I wanted to talk about whether or not there's a possibility that the Bears could take Marvin Harrison with the first pick. Too many people have it locked in stone that Caleb Williams will be the #1 pick. While I do think it's very likely Caleb ends up being the first pick of the draft, I do think there's a chance that any one of 4 players could go #1 overall. There are 3 QBs at the top of this draft. Caleb is joined by Drake May and Jaden Daniels, as well as Marvin Harrison Jr. The evaluation process is still ongoing for all 3 quarterbacks, and depending on how a team ends up ranking them, there's a chance a different quarterback could be the first pick. I think by the time we get to the draft, any one of those 4 could potentially go #1 overall, depending on who holds the pick and how they grade out this QB class. But I will say that Caleb Williams is easily the favorite, and I would put my money on him being the first pick. I think Drake May is the biggest sleeper. He has a lot of Justin Herbert and Josh Allen in his game, and a team could definitely favor him over Caleb. I'll have my scouting report on him coming soon. But what about Marvin Harrison Jr.? He's been #1 on my draft board all year long. I called him the safest player in the draft and the closest thing to a generational talent. I said he's the best wide receiver I've seen since Calvin Johnson Jr. And now Mel Kiper Jr. has came out and said the same thing. Let's listen.
The last player amongst wide receivers with the grade as high as Marvin Harrison Jr.'s is Calvin Johnson in 2007?
Yeah, Keyshawn Johnson had a super high grade as well when he came out, ironically, with Marvin Harrison Sr. in that same draft in the mid-90s field. So, yes, this is an historically elite grade for a wide receiver is what Marvin Harrison Jr. will have. Now, he did have a drop every now and then. They do. There will be that. You can nitpick that.
If Marv is the best prospect since Megatron, and a better prospect than Keyshawn Johnson, who went #1 overall, shouldn't there be a chance that the Bears stay at #1 and take him? And another point here, with all these rumors that teams would overpay for the pick, is there a chance Poles is considering staying at #1 and taking Marvin Harrison Jr., and that's why he doesn't want to trade out of the pick? I think it's highly unlikely, especially with the interest Caleb Williams is drawing. I do think Marvin Harrison Jr. is worth taking #1 overall, and I think it's possible they could take him at 1 and then still trade down from #9 or take another stud player there. But I don't think it's as crazy as some people think. Marv is that talented. Imagine if he goes off at the combine, his hype could go even higher. He's a uniquely gifted prospect, and I think he's the best player in the draft. I would never argue with taking the best player in the draft at #1 overall. But the argument I would make is if you can still get the best player in the draft and trade down a couple of spots, get extra picks, and still land the guy that's #1 on your board at pick 2 or 3, that is obviously the dream and would be a better scenario. But you have to get one of those teams to trade up, and that's what it really comes down to. I think realistically, I would be just fine if we took Marvin Harrison Jr. with the #1 pick. I just think the opportunity to trade down this year is too good to pass up, and when you pair that with it's probably the best wide receiver class in the last 15 years at least, a trade down just makes too much sense. But at the end of the day, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in the draft. I think he's a lock to go by the 4th pick. There's no way he gets past the Cardinals at #4, but he should be a top 3 pick and is good enough to go #1 overall. The NFL just places too much value on quarterbacks, so it's likely he does not end up being the first pick and ends up either going 2, 3, or 4. Thanks to everyone who watches. I have a ton more content on the way. Please remember to hit that like button for me, and until next time, bear down.